Alright, we're going to unbox a 4,500 pound Viper Max Winch that was ordered on Tuesday afternoon, arrived on Friday afternoon. This is for an XP 1000, so it'll have a custom mounting plate, and theoretically it will have a rocker switch for mounting it to the dash instead of a handlebar switch, which I think these things come from standard. Should also have a winch in it, and some wires and some other things. Alright, get the nasty coppers out of the way. Let's see what we got here. Christmas morning, still no idea. Something's in this box. Doesn't feel very heavy, must be a lot of goodies. Let's pop that open. Okay. Let's see what we have in here. More paper. Okay, that must be my custom plate for the XP1K. I saw it online and it looked like it had some extra parts. So I think that, let me see here. I think this is going to be the front, and this will be the rear back here. It probably goes about like that. It's going to go in the RZR. Don't know what these little guys are for yet, but we'll find out. I think they might be for the Fairlead. And there's an instruction sheet. Obviously gonna, yeah, looks like those things are for the Fairlead Mount. Okay, good. That makes sense. All right, what else we got? More paper, lots more paper, lots more paper. Then we see the winch box. So let's pop that open. Make sure there's no other goodies in here. Nope. Okay. Well, here we go. Now, recognize these cables. I've installed two of these guys before. One on a Grizzly 700, one on a RZR 800. So the blue and yellow wires are going to end up going from the contactor to the winch. Red and black you could probably figure out on your own. Here's a wiring assembly. There's a corded remote. There's where the corded remote jack is and the plug for it, so that all makes sense. There's my switch, my rocker switch, already into a wiring pigtail, so that's kind of cool. It was a $30 upgrade on the winch, and I was kind of worried. It's a lot of money to pay for a switch, but now I guess it makes sense. It comes with the custom pigtail and all that. So excellent, excellent. Let's put that back in. We have, that's the standard mounting plate that comes with it. Not going to be of any use to me. There's some instructions for installing. Book. These are the wire covers for where you connect. There'll be 4 on the contactor, 2 on the winch. You don't get 2 of these for the power and the ground cord. Some zip ties, your little hand saver, the rubber stop so you can stop your winch without busting it up. Contactor, everything's color coded on that. You can see it's pretty heavy. Interesting mount. It's not real big and flat like I've seen on some other ones. Looks like it wants to go on a sidewall or something. We'll figure that out later. Get in your box here. More nuts and bolts. Snatch block. Very good for using with your winch. Gives you a couple, 2 times the power, mechanical advantage. It's basically a pulley. Fairlead. And, of course, the winch itself. Pièce de résistance. Now this looks like a fumble because I ordered it with orange. Unless, oh, never mind. Guess what? There is orange rope under there. This is that tree saver piece that goes around. It slips past it, so if you got it wrapped around a tree, you don't have the cable itself rubbing on the tree. It slides through this sleeve, and that sleeve moves up and down. So I got the orange rope on there. It's 40 foot, 1/4 inch. All right, there you have it. It's unboxed. Oh, there's a cover in there too. Kind of silly. Not going to mess with that. But that's your MotoAlliance winch, and next is going to have to be the major part of the deal, which will be the install. Okay, just eyeballing the XP1K before I start the winch install. Obviously going to be taking this plate off right here. I already loosened it up. That just comes off, little plastic thing. It's got a couple 10mm screws in it. Then it comes off of there. Looked all around in here. It's going to be a very tight fit to get that plate in there. It's going to go just above that front transmission case. Probably going to have to come in from the other side because of this vent tube right here. That's cool. It's all good. Now, coming up, looking down here, it's a suggestion to put the contactor inside. There's two holes right here on the XP1K that look like they're almost perfectly made for mounting the contactor, but I'll see about that. I'm going to pop this dash off, pull these two Torx screws, and then push it forward. It comes off, and over here I think I'm going to do the flush mount switch on it. So I'll have that off, and I'll look around on the inside too and see if that might be a better place to do it. But first thing is to get the winch mount done up, at least put that in place. But before we put the winch in, we're going to have to do the rope trick on the to get the rubber stopper on it, because this little guy needs to go over that rope, right? So you got to either take the metal piece out of the rope or take the rope off the winch and then put it back on. Putting it on is tricky because there's a BB involved. I don't want to do it when the winch is installed, so I'll have to figure that out. Off we go. Okay, I want to talk about the mounting plate just a little bit. So I test fitted it in there, and then realized once you get the winch in there, it's hard to tell exactly which holes to go in. So I went ahead and marked these 4 inner holes. They're the ones that you're ultimately going to bolt up into the winch when you get it in place. Now, these tabs are pretty thick on the front and the back, and when you get that thing nestled into place, the carriage bolts that came with it, which are these 3/4 guys, they don't really leave enough for the nut to bite on, especially if you put a washer on it. So there's 4 of these, which maybe for the other mount work, but they also have some other 3/8 bolts in there that are 1 inch long that may do the job. And I think that might be why they're there. But I surfed around in my own pile of stuff and found these guys. Got a couple of these. They'll work just fine for the front. They'll go through. They won't bother with anything else. And then in the back, I think I'll use some of these 3/8 bolts that they sent along. Where are they? Might be these guys. Nope, not them. Never mind that. Anyhow, looks like I'll end up using these guys. So I may have to go to the hardware store and get another one. They need to be a little bit longer than this 3/4 so that the nut has something to chew on when it gets onto the bolt. Alright, the winch plate is in. I ended up using 1 inch 3/8 carriage bolts because they gave just enough to protrude, and I could still use the square holes on the razor frame so they would lock into place. That was very handy. I started with some longer ones, but you'll find that you're hating life just trying to turn a wrench down in those tight places, and I didn't feel like going any further than I had to. It was kind of a pain in the neck. So now I'm ready to just sit the winch up on there and see how it feels. Alright, I'm about to pull this rope out and then feed it through the rubber stop. It's supposed to go underneath, comes in the back of this thing, and it's looped over. And there's a little BB that comes out when you're doing this. That has to go inside this thing when you put it back in, but that's how it's supposed to look when we're done. So from underneath, that's a little gummed up there. Okay, now it's got to go through this thing, but I think it's also going to end up going through the Fairlead, so I'm going to put that thing through it right now. Alright, then it's going to go through the holes right about in there to where the winch will be. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rope through all of that, and then it'll be ready for when I put the winch on. Alright, I'm getting ready to put this line back on the winch. Hopefully I'm doing this in the right order, but as you can see, I've got the the cable threaded through. So it's going through there, down on the end. You can see we got Fairlead, and then the rubber stop. Sorry about that. So it goes through there, comes back around, and now I'm going to try to put this thing back on. So it went underneath, comes out, and they say loop it back in. But before you pull it tight, put this BB back in that little hole right there. So let's see if we can nudge this thing. I think that BB gets in there. Ideally, keeps that thing from ever bunching through. Now when I pulled my synthetic cable off, that BB just came flying out well before I got to the bottom, so I'm not exactly sure where it was, but there you have it. So hopefully it doesn't get lost. Heck, I don't think it'd come through there anyway, really. Alright, there we go. So now I can put the winch back on, and hopefully I did it in the right order. Otherwise I'll be redoing this. Alright, the Fairlead mount is in place, along with these brackets for the Fairlead. And I want to tell you, they're tough to put on because, you know, I've got this bumper and I don't want to take the Polaris bumper off because the fasteners for this thing are like one use only or something like that. I mean, at least the ones on the rock kicks are. I had a devil of a time putting them back on after I took one off once. Anyhow, you got to get these bad boys off behind here, and then these brackets go in. Kind of have to look at the orientation that they give you on these instructions. You can see the shorter part of the angled bracket is at the top, and so I kind of went for that. I don't know if you can see here, right here, shorter part. Anyhow, so you have to use little 13mm wrench to get back in here to turn these things. It was very difficult. Fortunately, I have one of these little guys that goes right over the bolt head, very small, 13-inch guy. So you see it's open in the back, and I was able to sneak that in there and get quite a bit of tightening done. And then these are 17mm on the back, and I took the radiator grill cover out so I could have a 17mm wrench behind it, and then I just use the Allen to turn it. So that's all nice and tight, and the next step will be to bolt the winch in place. Well, it's in there. The winch is in. I used those 13mm or socket bolts. I guess they said M8 maybe underneath on the inside set of 4 holes to get the thing in. It's nice and tight. You can see the hoses are kind of snug around there, but everything appears to fit. And I think that probably was several hours to get that mounting plate in, to get the Fairlead on, and to get the winch mounted up. Believe me, you're working in some very tight places there, and it is no fun. But hey, that should be the hard part. The wiring should be fun. Get a look from the other side. Yep. You can see that hose goes over pretty snug. But there's room for both wires to get on there. And that should do it. There's the vent from the tranny. It's still got plenty of play in it, so I'm not too worried about that. And a look from the front. And you can see there she be. Alright, it's time to remove that dashboard assembly and get a look inside, see where I might mount this thing. So, in case you haven't taken the dash off in the 1K, it's not really that difficult. Take these torque screws out. Put them aside. Pretty much you're just going to lift it and push it straight towards the cab. It should come out. It's off. It really is not a whole lot more to it than that. You can get disconnecting wires, I guess, if you want to, but key thing was I wanted to get it out of the way for now, so I could continue to do some work here. You know, I could probably disconnect these wires if I get really intense, but for now, that gives me enough access. And I can see there's the bundle of wires, and there's the amp from the stereo I just put in, marine amp. Got some ring clamps in there holding that bad boy on. Wire assembly there. That's my MP3 jack. Anyhow, time to look for a place to put the contactor. I'm sure I've got lots of choices. I haven't decided yet, so just going to do a little poking around in here. Get an idea where it can go. Be back in a little while. Alright, for the dash mount switch, we're looking inside the dash. There's the instrument cluster, the speedometer and all that. These little cutouts are already here on the XP1K, and that's where this dash mount switch is going to end up. You can see it looks a lot like the switches already on the 1K, those guys right there. So I got to make one of those cutouts. I'm sure I'll try that with a knife and see how I can do, and I can push this assembly through and get to wiring. I still am thinking about where I'm going to locate the contactor. The yellow and blue wires, which came with this thing, these go to the from the contactor to the winch. They're almost 8 feet long, and the battery cables are 3 feet long. So they really recommend you put the contactor back by the battery. But since we have this distribution block up here, I'm already running power from the battery up here, so I might just tap into that, put the contactor right inside here maybe, not through the bottle but right around here, but on the inside. We'll see. Alright, that switch is in. That took a lot of work to cut that hole out of there without messing everything up, so just be prepared to take your sweet time doing that little deal, unless you got the right tools. Maybe something real hot just melts right through it on the line, but I didn't have that, so that took quite a while. Now, something interesting is going to be the fact that this red wire from here is supposed to go to negative and the battery. I really need them to get to this terminal, but I don't think they're going to reach from here through the hole and up, so I'm going to have to tap them in to something to get them over to here, coming up through this hole or through that hole right there. No big deal. No big deal. Still working on where the contactors are going to go. Got to get on it now. Alright, you can see where I'm placing the contactor. Right down there. There's the screw that'll be on the left side from the inside, and that hole is where the right will be. So the contactor's going to be sitting on the other side of this wall, facing up. And it was tricky trying to get it in there. It's hard to get those holes drilled, but I think it should work just fine. Alright, so the contactor's been located. It's going to go over here. I had to do the wire swap. The red and black wires were small enough that they'll go from the contactor to the winch. And so yellow and blue will end up being the going to the battery and to the ground back there. So I'm going to run them down through the channel and take them back to the battery and hook it up. No big deal. Alright, catching up. the contactor, which will be on the other side of the wall, right over there, one of the screws right there. Starting to get it wired. I swapped the black and red wires because I decided I am going to run straight to the battery instead of using this terminal block here. It's already quite crowded, and there's going to be a lot of amperage flowing through this whole thing. The yellow and blue wires are 8 feet long, so they'll come through here and down through the channel and back to the battery. I've already wired up the black and red wires, and they're substituted yellow and blue onto the contactor. I drilled a hole, 7/8 hole in the top of the glove box, and I'm going to put this remote, the wired remote connector, in there. So the wires will come up through here, get all done up in this area, and then I'll just leave the wired remote in the glove box and plug it in when I need it. And that should work. So that's where I am. Going to do some more wiring now and get this thing done. All right, just a quick update. Yellow and blue wires from the contactor over to the battery have been partially run through this piece of wire loom here. Left this much slack to go onto the contactor, and then those bad boys go around through this guy right here, wire loom, to underneath that member right there. So I put some heat shrink on that to protect it. So I'm going to connect that to the battery, and then should be able to connect it to the contactor. I'll put that on the contactor first. And I don't know if you can see up in the glove compartment, but my jack is it's up there. See if we can get in there and look around. Nope. All right, forget that. Anyhow, continuing with the wiring, almost done. So there's all the wires connected to the contactor. I'm about to put those boots on. I did coat them with some dielectric grease. Put that on the electrical connections. And I'm doing everything I can to keep water out of there. Should be pretty safe given it's on the inside. Okay, there it is. They're all fastened, and the grease is underneath those hoods, and that's a little bit of marine heat shrink on there. So things should be as watertight as they can be. And I hope that none of that stuff ever falls off of there. All right, now the there's two different switches to operate the winch. We know that. There's this dash mount switch, and then there's the switch that comes out from the wired remote. I installed that to the top of the glove compartment right down there. So what happens is they each have a wire that needs to go to the contactor, the black and green wires, and you get packaged these jacks that have the little extra tabs on them. So you just mate those two together like that. I'll put some heat shrink on them and then put them on the contactor, and then they'll both be ready to rock. I had kind of a harsh lesson when I went to put the battery cables on, the terminals that come on the yellow and blue wires. Too small to fit. So I had to cut them off, put some of these guys on that I happen to have. So I'm getting ready to connect that, and then it should be good to go. That's the wire cluster, if you will. You might be able to see the contactor down there, the yellow wires going into it. So all that's going to be under the dash there in a minute, and we'll give it a try. Okay, it's time for the moment of truth. I've got the rope in my hand here, reaching over the hood, and I'm going to turn the key on. Let the razor go through its thing there. Looking at the switch, appears to be lit. That's interesting. Let's go ahead and try pulling it in. Should pull the rope towards the razor. Yep, reverse. Well, that works. That's good. The only thing left to try is the remote, so maybe I'll wire that up, give it a shot. All right, I plugged the remote in this thing. So I'll hit in Just pulling it towards the razor, press out, takes it away. We're good to go. Time to clean up. Install looks like it's done. Now it's time to spool this thing up. See if we can't get that line on there right. I'm gonna take a quick peek at that BB though. You see I gotta put it out for that. You see it in there, I'm gonna give it a yank or two. Getting tighter. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the line in now. I could do better than that. Alright, so you get the idea. I'll finish up. Alright, winch install is complete. Just going to do a quick walk around. Here you can see the switch mounted in that dash cutout that was already there. Everything else looks pretty clean in the cab here. Not a whole lot of wires or anything to see down below because it's all up in there someplace. That's cool. Let's walk around the front. And there it is. You can see the Viper winch is in place. It's all spooled up. Coming around. There's a view from the side. They got that line just in the right place, the way they designed those that Fairlead mount. It's all good. Done. All that's left is to put a sticker on.